Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 light and fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
The James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, my friends, to the Saturday morning edition of Bo Snerdley. Ah, yes, the Saturday morning vibe has arrived. If you would like to be part of the program today, 800-848-9222 is how you reach us, 848-9222. I don't know how many phone calls we're going to be able to take. I'm just going to be candid with you because we have today just a jam-packed lineup for you. Joining us today, Dr. Nicholas will be here. We're going to talk about some of the things that happened in the news this past week, especially. Well, we'll start off with the prostate cancer diagnosis that Joe Biden got and hopefully veer off into a few other areas as well. In addition to that, very pleased that our dear friend, and I will not go on and on about the friendship that we have, but you've heard her on this program before. She is now the spokeswoman for the State Department of the United States of America, Tammy Bruce. Of course, Tammy has a very distinguished career in radio and television. Very familiar voice to all of you. Tammy Bruce will join us as well today. Lizzie will be here. Our very own Lizzie Radabali, and I am looking forward to catching up with Red Apple Media superstar news anchor Lizzie Radabali, who has, of course, her finger on the pulse of the young generation. Princess Diana will be here. I am so looking forward to hearing what America's Princess of Policy has to say about the things going on. This has been an incredible week, as they all have been for news in this country. And, of course, America's small caffeinated mom, Rhonda Schrock, will be joining us. So, as you see, we have a full lineup today, and I want to get to it. The war with Harvard University and the administration is something that I do want to talk about. We've been talking about it during the week. But I want to just start with another note. I have not, in all honesty, had time to read the entire 11, it prints out to well over that page document, but I've read some of it. Restoring Gold Standard Science, that the executive order that Donald Trump signed. And it is deep, and I have more on that, more pages here. One of the things, and folks, this is important. This is not going to get a lot of coverage. In fact, when I looked across the vast array of media outlets that I survey every day, it wasn't even mentioned in the splash headlines and the splash pages of most of the mainstream press. But this has the potential, together with what the president did in terms of nuclear energy yesterday, that executive, this has the standard to really make America prosper in ways that we haven't even seen. What do I mean by that? Our lives have been ruled in terms of public policy by junk science to a degree that is almost incalculable. If you look at what happened during the COVID, and his executive order references that, if you look at what happened with COVID and the way that junk science was used to oppress the American people, oppress freedom of expression, to basically shut down opposition on an ideological basis from America's medical profession and scientific profession. It was profound. It goes deeper than that. The idea that this entire left-oriented political world has spent trillions of dollars cumulatively on a theory that has altered over time. First, the theory was the world was going to suffer another cold ice age. Then in our lifetimes, that shifted to the world was going to be consumed by climate change, by global warming, they said. The global warming language shifted again when arguments were really hitting home about it to that of climate change. And hence you have policies like the Green New Deal and other policies that have really eaten up your money, the money that you are required to pay your government in taxes. So much of that money has been squandered and wasted. In addition to new taxes like these carbon taxes. And the left has prospered by them. There have been some of the proponents of those have made billions of dollars. I remember during the Obama administration, you had all these companies like Solyndra and other companies that consumed billions of dollars. Some of them are bankrupt. The people that were behind them ended up becoming very, very wealthy. And many of them were huge donors to the Democrat Party. All of this had its beginning source in junk science. So restoring gold science, the gold standard science in America, is what Donald Trump's executive order was announced yesterday. And they defined what that is. It's reproducible, transparent, and falsifiable, meaning if you're saying something is a scientific conclusion, you need to be able to reproduce it. How they got there has to be transparent and open. And you have to be able to subject to unbiased peer review. I don't know how you get to unbiased, but that's one of the goals. You have to be very clear about errors and things that you're not certain about, skeptical about assumptions, collaborative and interdisciplinary, meaning you can't just, you have to be willing to accept ideas from people that may not agree with the conclusions, which now, if you are, let's say, what do they call people? And they've, on purpose, a global warming skeptic. And then they went to denier and tried to equate that as with Holocaust denial. In other words, if you don't agree with the left and their assumptions, you're crazy, you're a kook, you're a nut, you're a conspiracy. And there is no collaboration. You either agree with the ideology presented or you're shunned and you're put outside of the so-called scientific community. Accepting of negative results as positive outcomes, meaning if you don't get the results you're looking for, you see that as a positive instead of just hiding from it. and it must be free from conflicts of interest. And this is the new policy that the federal government will have with regard to science. Folks, this is huge. It's huge. And I am hoping that we will be able to, in future shows, talk to some scientists and those involved in many of these disciplines about how big this is. We have 26, Carlos. The president just made a few remarks when he signed that piece of that executive order yesterday, and this is what he said.
This executive order is entitled Restoring Gold Standard Science. One of the issues that we've had in recent decades is that government policy has been made on the back of junk science, scientific studies and findings that have included conflicts of interest or scientific misconduct. The purpose of this executive order is to recenter policymaking around gold standard science, scientific efforts that have followed appropriate scientific methods that don't include those sorts of conflicts of interest, and to ensure that when departments and agencies are relying on scientific studies to promulgate rules, to promulgate regulations, that the science that they're relying on is highly reliable and available to the public.
He did a very good job, didn't he?
He did.
How many people here could have done that? I don't know. I think a lot. Good job, Will.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And with that, this signature goes on with what could be one of the stellar pieces of legislation in American history. James Golden, Snerdley here. It is Saturday morning. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Vibe. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. On this day in 1975, EWF, Earth, Wind, and Fire, goes to number one. With this one, it's one of the lead singles from the Way of the World album, their signature, as they call it, their anthem. That's The Way of the World. But this was the breakthrough album. I mean, Earth, Wind, and Fire have been growing and growing. But this was their big breakthrough album that really put them over the top and made them an international phenomenon. Number one on this date in 1975, Earth, Wind, and Fire. James Golden, Snerdley with you, Saturday Morning Vibe.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Custom window treatments are a small upgrade that have a big impact. No better time to shop than now at Blinds.com's Memorial Day Mega Sale. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day Mega Sale now. Save up to 50% site-wide, plus a free measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Oh, man. Haven't heard this in a long time. Birthday today for Larry Blackmon, lead singer, Cameo, 1986. This jam went up to number 3 in the UK. It was all over the place in the US. Of course, Word Up. James Golden, Snerdley with you here. It is Saturday. I want to just run through a few things really quickly. We have some calls already, and since later on we are not going to have time to take a lot of calls, maybe I'll try to visit one. In fact, right now I see something that is in the mix of things that I wanted to discuss, and that's Joan calling in from Manhattan. Joan, it says here that you think it's a bad idea to deregulate nuclear plants. Is that your takeaway from the announcement that President Trump made in the Oval Office? Joan, are you with me? Not hearing Joan. Okay. Well, I'll talk about it anyway. The president has a plan for fast-tracking nuclear power. And according to the Washington Post today, it is taking aim at regulators. The president's executive order threatens to erode the decades-long independence, it says, of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. First question for all of you, who elected the Nuclear Regulatory Commission? Nobody is the answer because they're not elected. They are part of the unelected bureaucrat class that seems to think that they have a right to run American policy. They are unelected, unaccountable to you, the voters, but yet they have immense power. One of 4 executive orders that Donald Trump signed yesterday directs the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to complete the licensing process for any new reactors within 18 months. In other words, stop slow-walking nuclear power in America. Do your job. Get nuclear facilities online and do it, what we say, relatively quickly, 18 months. Donald Trump said we're going to take the shackles off the nuclear industry. No more waiting 15 years to get a permit to do nuclear energy. And the other thing he talked about, and he had a gentleman in the audience with him at the signing, who's the CEO of the working on the next generation of nuclear reactors. His name is Jacob DeWitt Oklo. And this is, we have at Cut 24, Carlos, and he had a brief remark about it when Donald Trump signed the order. Donald Trump turned to him and asked him for his comments. And this was that discussion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, a little MIT nuclear connection that goes back, I know, familiar for you. So, yeah, we're working on small reactors. I'm Jacob DeWitt, CEO, co-founder at Oklo, working on small next-generation reactors that take technology America invented, developed, and pioneered and bringing it to the market after it sat on the shelves of history for about 40 years. And it's because of the actions that you're doing today that are going to help unleash that. Changing the permitting dynamics is going to help things move faster. We're seeing private investment flow into this space like we've never seen before. We went public about a year ago, and one of the most successful actually go public outcomes for a transaction like that for a small nuclear company, because the market needs this and wants this. And under your leadership, creating the the Dominance Council. I mean, it's hard to overstate the value of that. And nuclear is a manifestation of energy dominance. In fact, a golf ball of uranium metal, which this is not, but it's a golf ball, has enough energy content in it to power your entire life's energy needs. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And to get back to building, nuclear uses the fewest materials, right? The least amount of concrete, of steel, of fuel for amount of energy it produces. So it should be the cheapest, the most scalable, the most sustainable. Just like you mentioned, Mr. President, about the importance of doing that right. The physics are on our side, and these things help unleash this innovation to actually realize that. So it's never been more exciting.
So this is huge, folks. He was holding, and you heard this, a golf ball, and that statement is pretty incredible. He said a golf ball size ball of uranium contains in it enough energy for your entire life, your entire energy usage. And these guys are building microreactors. I remember John Catsimatidis was talking with me about what was possible with some of these new things that have been prevented from coming online. And he was talking to me about nuclear reactors and small micro-nuclear reactors. Today, it's becoming a reality. The fact is, we can be an independent energy nation. We were the ones, the Manhattan Project, that invented, that successfully deployed nuclear energy during World War II, as you know. Yet we have been lagging because the left has been opposed to it. And they set up this regulatory structure to make sure it doesn't happen. Donald Trump is unleashing it. This is a huge thing. And you combine that with actually unleashing true science and putting junk science on the ash heap of history, folks, these are big things. James Golden, Snerdley with you. Keep it right here. We have got a full show for you today, so do not go away.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This does not sound like Bob Dylan.
This is not it. That says Lady Lay Bob Dylan.
Turn this off.
I'm not a... Oh.
Turn it off. Thank you. Give me some Bob Dylan. I don't care what Bob Dylan you get. I want Bob Dylan, please. Thank you. It's Bob Dylan's birthday today. Bob Dylan, born in 1941. Richard Robert Zinnerman is his name, of course. One of the most influential musicians, singers, composers, songwriters, painter, all of it. Bob Dylan, born on this day in 1941. Happy birthday to the one and only Bob Dylan. This man, one of those artists, imprinted on the soundtrack of many people's lives. Dr. Peter Miklos is with us. He kept his promise. We talked during the week when the news came out about Joe Biden's prostate cancer. He said he would join us this week. And so, Dr. Miklos, thank you so much for being with us. My first question, and I don't want to get into the whole politics of Biden and who knew when and all of that. I want to just ask you a question. Advanced prostate cancer. When should men how do men avoid having that same diagnosis in their lives?
Well, most people, as part of their annual physical, and in the United States, most people at 50, they start doing PSA tests. But since younger men are getting it, many internists And many primary care will get a baseline usually at age 40 just to see where you are, and then you follow it. And when the prostate-specific antigen, which is basically a tumor marker, starts to rise and go higher and higher, then the doctor will do a digital rectal exam, which basically you feel the prostate because it's right in that area, and you can actually feel it. And if you feel a nodule, then that's suspicious, or your prostate is enlarging. When your prostate enlarges, it pushes on your bladder, so you think that you have to go to the bathroom all the time, so you find yourself early on getting up in the middle of the night, peeing more, and it puts more and more pressure. Then you have trouble starting and stopping urination. But if your PSA is climbing, the next step is you get a 3D MRI, and we never heard anything about anyone getting a 3D MRI in the news, and we heard that the last prostate test was in 2014. So that's why there's all this, suspicion of when it actually started, because it takes years to start. Then if it is positive and you see it on the 3D MRI, and the prostate is like orange, and the capsule that it sits in is the orange peel. The problem is once it breaks out of the orange peel, that's when it's higher risk for spreading, and it usually goes to regional lymph nodes and to bone. The problem when it gets to the bone is it can become more painful. So the trick is to really treat it early. The good news is that the people, when they get it when they're older, they tend to have a better prognosis. And the options for treatment are you can either radiate it, which is basically like frying the tumor cells. The problem with that is that you can have collateral thermal damage where it can affect other tissues around it if it's not delivered precisely. That's why they have newer methods of delivering radiation, like proton beam radiation. There's also other treatments are basically prostate cancers grow with hormone therapy like testosterone. So if someone has a high PSA or at risk for prostate cancer or have several male relatives in their family with prostate cancer, it's probably not a good idea to be playing with testosterone therapy if you are suspected of having an early prostate cancer. Because
let me just interrupt you right there, because you see ads, I see ads all the time, especially for guys that are gym rats. And they want to up their testosterone. They're not consulting doctors. They're not even consulting getting their own blood work in some cases before they start buying pills that, here's testosterone supplements. There's a danger in that if you don't know what you're doing. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, one of the biggest issue is clotting. And what happens is when you take testosterone, you're supposed to follow your hemoglobin, your hematocrit, which is how thick your blood is. And the more thick your blood is, the higher at risk for clots. Like a lot of these places aren't testing for something called factor V Leiden, which is a predisposition for clots. Clots in your legs, clots in all your that can spread to your lungs. So when you have high testosterone in your body, you get thicker blood. It builds muscle and blood, but your blood can get thick. So that's a thing that they need to test more. So you really need to be under the care of a physician to monitor your blood test, to monitor the levels closely. The problem is people are doing it, they're overdoing it. The other thing is, there are behavioral changes with some men who are trying to achieve very high testosterone levels. You can become hypersexual, hyperaggressive. Like you see some of these men, when you look at them, you can see they're doing steroids or anabolic steroids or testosterone. So it just has to be monitored. Just like if you have low thyroid, you take thyroid replacement. If you have very low testosterone, I think it's great that men can make their levels normal. The problem is people are trying to achieve very high levels and they're not being monitored appropriately. They're doing a lot of this stuff online instead of, seeing someone. But you can do it, you can do it virtually, but the doctor has to be checking your labs like every 3-4 months so you know where your levels are exactly and what's going on. But that's
okay. So prostate cancer, though, it may not be, and there's no cure. It may not, cure. You can surgically remove it. You can defeat a cancer with the prostate cancer with radiation. I know this very, very well. And also, there's only one way in for the the prostate exam. A little bit uncomfortable, but it's worth it. Now, black men have a higher risk of contracting PSA. I would suggest, and I'm not a doctor, and just tell me if I'm wrong, but I tell my friends, look, even sometimes before you're 30, if you happen to be a black guy, go get your product. Just get the PSA test as part of your blood test. It's not going to hurt you. Just get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, tremendous sense. I think it's very important. I think there need to be more public service announcements about the importance of getting PSA tests. Just like for women, we need to push women to get, mammography and to get checked out. And also colonoscopy, all these preventable things that can, help people to live longer. Because it's not really, prostate cancer is not a death sentence if it's caught early and it's controlled. And even for advanced cancer, the hormone blocking that blocks testosterone, those people live longer. And there's even an exciting new medicine called Pluvicto that's radioactively labeled chemotherapy that knows and finds the surface of prostate cancer cells anywhere in the body. Not a cure, but it's shown now that it can slow down prostate cancer dramatically. So those people who've been diagnosed with prostate cancer and worry about recurrence in the future, there are options now that exist. So that's why early treatment is very important, and there are amazing new medicines coming out. There's even people working on prostate vaccines where they'll make custom-made. When they biopsy your tumor, they'll take surface proteins off of your specific tumor and make a vaccine and make your immune system direct its energies towards that specific type of cell. So this is all coming up and exciting. So it's important to, early diagnosis is very important. And
all right, let me just ask you another question that's tangential to this discussion. I had prostate cancer. I've talked about it. One of the things and I had the treatment that goes with it. It is a drug that makes your body think it's producing testosterone when in fact it's producing estrogen. And what it does is that helps deal with the cancer situation. That drug turns out to be the same drug that they are using for quote unquote gender affirming processes. And let me tell you, that is some powerful stuff. And what it does to your moods, what it does to your emotional state, it is powerful. And from what I understand, that drug was developed to fight cancer, was never developed for the purpose that it's being used for now. Do you have any insight into that?
Well, I think it's just being used off-label, and basically they're trying to block testosterone and to try to create feminization, which is what it does. And also, you grow breast tissue sometimes, but these are side effects. But if I had prostate cancer, obviously I would take it because it helps you to live and to block the growth of any tumor. But yes, it is an off-label use for transitioning people, and that is an issue. But no,
I want to move from that. I just wanted to clear that up. I wanted to move to that and just ask you your thoughts, Doctor, on what we're seeing. We're already seeing the beginnings of some of the food industry changing the ingredients, thanks to pressure that's coming in from the new administration. And what is your outlook right now on where we are going? You have talked extensively about this, about the food that we eat and how it can either help or hurt you or poison you. What are you thinking about where we are right now? The administration's still new, but where things are headed?
No, they're headed in a positive direction. We know that what we put into the mouth affects our oral microbiome and our gut microbiome, and our gut is 80% of our immunity. And what we feed our gut is critical. And when we're feeding
Wait. Our gut is 80% of our immunity. Explain that.
It's our second brain. For example, when we digest food, it makes certain chemicals like the happy hormone for depression, the serotonin. A lot of it is made inside our gut. The gut and brain are connected through a nerve called the vagus nerve, and that is called the gut-brain axis. And we have now found that certain bacteria, if you're depressed, are higher or lower in the gut. When people have certain cancers, the guts are higher. There's a condition called small intestinal bowel overgrowth, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth in the bowel. It's called SIBO. And certain foods, certain artificial sweeteners, high fructose corn syrup causes the bad bacteria to overgrow. And a lot of the chemicals that we need for life happen in our gut. 75% of our white blood cells which fight infection, they hover around the lumen of the gut. The inside of your gut is actually the outside of your body. So that communication between how our food gets into our body and energy, that's what all this is going to be about. It's about these processed foods. So why do you have preservatives in food? Because you want them to sit in the supermarket shelf for a long time. So you put antibacterial preservative. But guess what? You inject the antibacterial preservative and it's killing some of the good bacteria and you're damaging it. And that's why farm-to-table eating is the best. That's why if you can have, clean wild-caught salmon, for example, you can, buy it online. It's really not that expensive versus one that's being fed corn. When your fish in a farm fish is being fed corn instead of the natural seaweed and other substances it alters the food. So we don't want our foods to be altered anymore. We want to stop genetically modifying the seeds as much. Yes, it's good to make resistant seeds, but we need to know what it does. We need to know all the antibiotics you feed chickens because they're all in these tiny, cramped up areas. When you eat that chicken, you eat that antibiotic. Again, it affects the gut microbiome because it kills some of the good bacteria. And when we start altering things in nature, we get into trouble. That's why I was excited about the executive order to stop the gain of function research. What that is they make viruses and they alter them to become more contagious so you can do more experiments in a faster way to test different drugs and medicine. The problem is if one of those escapes out of a lab, as we found out. So things like that are an example of man's technology is ahead of his biology. So we need to be careful how we alter our food and how it communicates with our gut microbiome. The soil communicates with our gut microbiome. When we eat, for example, extra virgin olive oil from a place like Morocco, which happens to be excellent, the soil, if it's dry and arid outside, a lot of UV, those plants make more polyphenols, they're called, and they've been shown to activate the longevity genes in our body called sirtuins. And the same thing is in actually avocado. That's why in the blue zones where people live longer, like Sardinia, Icaria, Greece, they found that the soil communicates with our gut microbiome, and those good foods that they eat, like olive oil, have this compound called oleic acid, and that stimulates the longevity genes, the sirtuin genes, and that's common in those areas. And then they said, oh, well, what about Loma Linda, California? They don't eat a lot of olive oil, but they eat a lot of avocados, which also has this oleic acid. So how the food we eat, the soil we eat, communicates with the gut microbiome, which is our second brain and 80% of our immunity, is really what we're targeting with all these changes, food dyes, food colorings, and how those things go into the gut and how they affect the thin lining of our gut, because that's the point of communication between our food and our energy and how we live. And also, we now know that certain dyes, for example, cause and stimulate cancer. So getting those out of the food supply chain is going to be amazing. And having things that don't have contaminants, just like the drugs being made in certain parts of the world, I think it's amazing. And I think we've been talking about this on WABC forever, how our supply chain is national security and it's our health security, that we need to know what's in our components. And that's another executive order, that the medicines have to be made here in the United States.
So much. You are such a wealth of information. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. McLeod. You are amazing.
No, thank you very much. I've been fortunate to be an associate professor at Columbia University for many years. I've been teaching medical students, and I love to teach, and I love to share with you on the show and keep our audience healthy and safe.
Amen to that. Thank you, James Golden, Snerdley. It is Saturday Morning Vibe. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. Coming back. Do not go away.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Wake up! Stop acting like somebody is coming to save us! They're not! You've got mother from the FBI descending on Memphis. You've got politicians cutting benefits for everyone.
No, they're not.
You have immigrants being deported for no goddamn reason.
Oh, language,
Taking kids from their families in Florida, and you think what? Someone's gonna fix it? Get angry. Wake up.
No, thank you.
Act like you give a about you.
Yeah, the budget passed the House. It's still got to go through the Senate, and already there's a lot of angst about that. James Golden, Snerdley. Saturday. The Saturday vibe is here. The birds.
Sorry, I didn't know. I thought it was something happy, and then I see the mention, and it says that founder member of the Birds, Gene Clark, died of a heart attack at 49, which seems very young.
Yeah, that was in 1991. Passed away on this day, Carlos. Thank you. Hey, Carlos, how about those Knicks?
First of all, I don't want to say it on the air, but I'm not a Knicks fan. I mean, I've been hard.
There's no problem with you saying that. A lot of people aren't Knicks fans. Kelvin, how about those Knicks?
He's still mourning, I'm guessing. Do you want to comment on the game yesterday?
Kelvin, how about those Knicks? Oh, they get crickets here.
Disappointing loss, but we're back at them in Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana. 2 games in a row.
Very, very disappointing.
Up 17 points going into on the first game with what, like 2 minutes or something left to play? Up 17
yes, sir.
Points?
Exactly. Yeah, just about. Yeah.
And then what? And then what happened?
Well, the collapse happened. And then
collapse.
Halliburton happened.
That's what you call it. Collapse.
It was a mental collapse. And
mental collapse.
Yeah, the guys were fatigued, obviously.
Fatigued?
Yeah. Long season.
Long season? Yeah. Doesn't the other team play the same number of games?
Those guys don't count, man.
They didn't collapse. They didn't have fatigue. Oh,
we also run a 7-man rotation, so there's that. But
here we go. They lost.
Go New York, go.
Yes, but going where? We got to go. Speaking of that, our number uno in the can, our number duo coming up. Whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be back.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, my friends, to our number duo, the Saturday Morning Vibe, here on Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial start of the summer season. Which means before you know it, we'll be at Labor Day talking about how this summer was either great or great. 800-848-9222. Coming up later in the program, Princess Diana. Coming up later in the program, America's small caffeinated mom, Rhonda Schrock. Coming up later this hour, we get a chance to check in with Tammy Bruce, our dear friend who is now the spokeswoman for the State Department of the United States of America. Right now, time to check in with Red Apple Media star anchorette supremo, the advocate for her generation of working and non-working, some spoiled, men and women and others in her generation, our very own Lizzie Radabali. Lizzie, how are you this morning?
I am just doing great. I'm doing excellent. I'm riding a post-concert high. I just saw Beyonce this past week, so, I'm doing good. I'm doing good mentally.
Okay. Did she come out in a cowboy hat?
She did. I was wearing one, too. I was wearing one myself.
You wore a cowboy hat?
Yep, a pink light-up cowboy hat. And I was wearing some cowboy boots, some snakeskin boots. It was a good time.
You killed snakes to wear their skin on your boots.
It's pleather, but the plastic.
Oh, it's pleather. You had some fake snakeskin boots.
Yeah, I'm not paying. This is for a concert, top dollar.
And so you went to see Beyonce sing country music.
Yes, correct. And she sang all her hits. She sang, Single Ladies, Love on Top, all the greats, all the chart toppers. I'm a big fan of hers, so
was Mr. Z there? Did Mr. Z come out and do what's the name of that song?
Oh, yeah, he didn't come out, but her two daughters did. Her two daughters, Blue Ivy, did a bunch of numbers. She was dancing, and Rumi came out for one of the numbers too, her youngest, and. Yeah, the crowd went wild. It was just explosive. You can have your opinions on Beyonce as a person, but you just can't deny that she's like a generational talent. She's commanded this entire stadium. She's in the middle of a football field. She's like an ant she's so tiny, but she's so captivating.
Yeah. Oh, there was a story in OnlyFans. I didn't put it in my lineup. I didn't even send it to you. Lizzie, makes me wonder about your generation there.
Yeah, what was that?
You see that story about the OnlyFans girl that ended up in the hospital?
No, I didn't. I did not.
You didn't?
I did not.
She slept with 500 some odd men in a 6 or 7 hour period, ended up in the hospital.
I think I've heard of that creator before.
Creator, you call her.
There are
other words that would apply. Creator is not one of them in my book.
Sure, if you want to be mean-spirited towards her, she's in the hospital.
Mean-spirited.
She's in the hospital. She's in the hospital, and she creates content which your demographic consumes. Thank you. Men are the number one consumers of her content. So
why is she in the hospital?
Because I don't know. I don't know why she was in the hospital. I don't know the specifics of the story.
I'll tell you why she was in the hospital, because she slept with 585 men in a 6 hour period. And that is not a creator.
She's, like I said, she's creating content. Her job is to make these videos. God. And she's getting, there's a reason she's doing it. She's being paid for it very handsomely. And that makes her, people do stupid things to make a lot of money. This is look at Evel Knievel. People will do anything for a paycheck.
Lizzie, where is the comparison between Evel Knievel
and this? Evel Knievel, the guy who had to suck on painkillers through his lollipops because he damaged his body too much by throwing it off of cliffs and stuff. How is that so different from a sex worker who has to, create these videos and throw her body into the pit of these men? I don't think that's... Yes, has to make a living.
Has to.
Yeah, because she's... Evel Knievel, did he have to jump over all those cars? Did he have to jump off a cliff? But he did. He did. No one has to do anything. There's a thing called free will, and we're under, different systems that we have to comply by. And, that what her choice is, what she chose to do with her occupation... Whatever. You can feel how you feel about her, but I think to, I
don't feel about it. I think about it. And it's just,
And I'm telling
Lizzie,
you, plenty of people think about it in other ways, and that's why she's getting paid.
That's why she's in the hospital. A photographer who scaled buildings to get the perfect shot at an exhibition. I love this story he sent me.
He got caught.
And Lizzie, the guy's photography is amazing. I just got to say it.
Yeah, no,
The photography that I've seen from him is absolutely stunningly, crazy amazing.
Yeah.
However, he shows up at his own exhibition and he gets arrested.
Yeah, taken away in cuffs from his first solo exhibition. He's displayed his work before, but this is the first time he's kind of headlined his own show. And yeah, he gets tapped on the shoulder. He's addressing a group of people, talking to them about his art. And he gets tapped on the shoulder by a woman, and she revealed that she was a cop in plain clothes and put him under arrest. He said that he was kind of nervous, but luckily this time he didn't have any guns pointed at him because he has gotten in trouble with the law before. He climbed a building over in Cincinnati, and then weeks later they tracked him down in Arizona and shut down an interstate. And they said that he was a former veteran, so he could be armed and dangerous, but they showed up with, guns blazing. He was unarmed, and he eventually got out of prison. He was sent to prison for that past, climbing in Cincinnati. He ended up serving some time and took a plea deal. And now he's back in trouble with the law again. So I just want to say...
because he climbed the Empire State Building where he wasn't supposed to climb, and he took a picture, and they arrested him.
What the gallery owner, the owner of the gallery where these photos were displayed, Robert Mann is the gallery owner. He says, there's plenty of photographers have probably trespassed to get the perfect shot. I mean, I can't say I've criminally trespassed, but I've climbed up certain things that I know I probably shouldn't have. It's just something that you do. Once again, you don't have to do it. You just do it.
It's not something that you...
It is just something. I mean, the average person doesn't climb up a bunch of...
This incessant need for pictures and selfies. Lizzie, you have read the stories of all these young people that not even young people, some old people try to get the perfect shot and end up what? Deaded.
Yeah, kerplunked.
Deaded.
Yeah, I do want to say that this artist, he is a veteran. It is Memorial Day weekend, so he's known colloquially as Drift. That's his artist name. He left the Army service, and he was struggling with PTSD, depression, mental illness. So he eventually started taking photos. One day he went up to a skyscraper in Texas and he was able to get to the roof, and he really enjoyed that experience. He said, wow, a wave of catharsis and peace came over me. So weeks later, it's unclear to say if this, I'll say this to defend this guy. He's doing this to treat and cope with his PTSD. I mean, it is still very reckless, like you said. He could get very hurt. He could die with some of these stunts. But, there are other ways to cope that are not as healthy as well.
And I will say this about the guy. His photos are amazing. I will say that. Okay, New York Times writes a story about an indigenous tribe. They're suing now. Why are they suing?
They're suing because everyone misconstrued the story and took this native tribe as a group of porn addicts. So New York Times first did a story about the Marubo tribe that's in the Brazilian Amazon. And they were recently hooked up to internet by the Starlink that's from Elon Musk. And, there was in the New York Times article, there were the typical claims, from the older members of the tribe saying young people have gotten lazy. They're not doing the traditional activities that they used to. All they do is scroll on that dang phone. And they also mention that the young people have started kind of dipping their toes into adult content, consuming adult content, sharing adult content. And this tribe is very conservative. They don't even approve of kissing in public. So this was a huge
They have
of
morals.
well, they have. I mean, they
Their
have
morals.
Their customs are very conservative,
morals.
and they don't. Yeah, like I said, they don't approve of any public displays of affection. So to kind of co-sign pornography, I mean, it's a complete departure from their culture. So it wasn't really. The Times is defending itself, saying we never called them porn addicts, but once the story was out there, a lot of other, TMZ, Yahoo News, they kind of ran with the headlines of, all these tribal members are addicted to porn. So now they're suing TMZ, Yahoo News, New York Times. Good luck getting $1 out of Yahoo, by the way. They're suing for $180 million, Yahoo
Good.
News. Good luck getting a single dollar out of Yahoo. I mean, good.
Good. The indigenous people. They hurt the indigenous people.
Yeah, I mean, I just think moral of the story: leave these native tribes alone. If they, we not so long ago we were talking about the guy who was trying to sail towards a remote native tribe, got arrested. I mean, people, if a tribe has been existing for thousands of years and they got their own thing going, let them keep going. I mean, why bother them with internet and phones, porn? I mean, it's just. I just really think it's disgraceful. And
Lizzie, we have to take a break, but I want you, we have a call on this young woman, the 583 woman. We have a call on her, and I want you to hang around and take this call, please, with me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. James Golden, Snerdley with you here, Saturday Morning Vibe. Lizzie, our very own Lizzie is here. I tell you, Lizzie can get me going. Anniversary of the song. Yeah, we're playing it now. Simon Garfunkel, second U.S. #1 album, Bookends. On this day, it went #1. Well, tomorrow's the anniversary of it, actually, in 1968. And Mrs. Robinson, of course, the big hit from that album. James Golden, Snerdley, Saturday Morning Vibe. Lizzie's here. Going to stick around. We're going to take a call when we get back. 800-848-9222. Stay where you are.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Tomorrow is the heavenly birthday of one of America's greatest songwriters, Hal David, who together with Burt Bacharach wrote so many classics. Close to You, Make It Easy on Yourself, this one, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, I Say a Little Prayer, so many hits. Passed away in 2012, age 91. Remembering the great Hal David. James Golden, Snerdley. Lizzie is here, and Lizzie stayed around so we could take a call, or maybe more. David in New York, you're up. Lizzie is here, and I am here. Snerdley, welcome. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Thank you, sir. I was just listening. I'm a big fan of WABC Radio, and all the thinking that goes on here, and all the great guests you have, and your show is terrific. So on this 583 woman, I just wanted to ask if, Lizzie, do you believe in the Bible at all? You know, do you believe in, like, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not, all these different things? Do you believe in the 10 Commandments?
I have my own personal commandments that I live by. I don't really follow. Like, I'm not religious by any means. No.
Well, that really answers it, because most people who are of belief in some sort of faith believe in the 10 Commandments, and what that woman did was a highest violation of the golden calf, of having people do what she did to her, and those people have to live with themselves for doing it. And in addition, she received something that is made in a sacred way, a sanctuary for people to life. So I think what she did was wrong, and I condone it on every level, and I wish the rest of the world agrees with me.
Well, Mary Magdalene would have some words to say to that, I think.
Interesting.
I believe that, there was a relationship there with, her birth. But all I could say is I don't think she would have intended to see that.
Interesting. David, thank you for the call. Rich in Pennsylvania wants to weigh in on this issue as well. The sex worker, that's the woman who slept with 583 men in a 6-hour period as part of an online challenge, ended up in the hospital. Rich, you're up next.
James, kudos to Hal David and Burt Bacharach.
Amen.
And she stopped. Lizzie, we love you. I respect you for being, where you're at in your career, because I lived in New York, and I've got 2 points to make. I was making my breakfast, and you stopped me dead. There's no moral equivalency really between what this woman did and Evel Knievel. I know Evel Knievel was a pillhead, and I know he was crazy to try to do a lot of this stuff he did, but it was entertainment.
Well, the men at home are being plenty entertained by this woman, I could tell you that.
I know, you're right, because men are weak. I have friends that are in their 60s that are still leering at women, which I don't understand. And the second point is, I was in the service, and I lived in Governor's Island, and I took a lot of pictures in New York in the 80s, but I never thought it was a good idea to climb a structure to take pictures. So maybe it's just my generation.
Well, especially the way that things are built nowadays. I mean, that's a fair kind of philosophy to hold. But I mean, to make good art, you got to take risks. And I think that's what this photographer in this case did. He took a risk and went to the top of the Empire State Building. I mean, who wouldn't want to see from the top of that? I do think that it was, a reckless move on his end for sure. But, to each his own.
Lizzie, you said to make good art, you have to take risks. Do you really? Or do you just have to be a great artist? All great art doesn't come from risk-taking.
I think it takes just putting yourself out there is a risk in itself. And in order to share your art, I mean, you could argue that's a risk. To put yourself, to bear your truth, to bear your soul through your art, that is a risk itself. So, I mean, I think, all art is involved.
You know what? Interesting. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, there's nuance.
You mean, and you think great art comes from the people who break the rules to get the art?
Yeah, and not always like breaking, actual laws or anything, but breaking from the mold, breaking from the standard. Yeah.
Becoming a rugged individualist.
Exactly. A rebel.
I echo the sentiment of our caller. We love you, Lizzie. Thank you.
Love you both. Thank you so much.
James Golden, Snerdley. Saturday Morning Vibe continues. Don't you dare go away. Tammy Bruce is coming up, so stay there.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley.
And my friends, Protecting Your Future, tariffs are back in the news. Let's check in with Donald Trump, I believe yesterday, discussing what's going on with the EU.
Yeah, please.
Mr. President, what about the European? You said the negotiations are going nowhere. Where are the kind of points
where
they're
slow moving? I've been saying to everybody, they've treated us very badly over the years. It was formed in order to hurt the United States, in order to take advantage of the United States, and they've done that. We have a big deficit with them. They sell millions and millions of cars, as you know, Mercedes and BMW and Volkswagen and many others. And we were restricted from selling cars into the European Union, which is not nice. And I just said it's time that we play the game the way I know how to play the game. They've taken advantage of other people representing this country, and they're not going to do that any longer. Yeah.
Mr. President, you are deal maker, deal breaker. What are you hoping to achieve with a 50% tariffs on the?
Well, I think this is there is no tariff, because what they'll do is they'll send their companies into the U.S. and build their plant. We have. I guess over $12 trillion practically committed. You look at other presidents; they haven't had $1 trillion for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. We have numbers. Nobody's ever seen numbers like we have. And if they build their plant here, then they have no tariff at all.
Are you looking for a deal in 9 days? Will you be able to do that, sir?
I'm not looking for a deal. I mean, we've set the deal. It's at 50%. But again, there is no tariff if they build their plant here. Now, if somebody comes in and wants to build a plant here, I can talk to them about a little bit of a delay. But, while they're building their plant, which is something I think that would be appropriate, maybe we'll determine that.
Is there anything they can do, sir? Is there anything the EU can do?
I don't know. We're going to see what happens. But right now it's going on June 1st. And that's the way it is. No, they haven't treated us properly. They haven't treated our country properly.
Okay, Wall Street Journal. After Trump threatened new tariffs on the European Union and on iPhones made overseas, the Wall Street Journal says that added new fuel to trade fears. They have an article. The biggest weekly decline in stock since April is again testing the risk appetite of everyday investors. The headline of the story, the gut-wrenching play in investing right now. Buy and hold. When a chunk of Bill Jensen's retirement savings got wiped away in early April, he started to second-guess himself. His wife urged him to consider switching their savings from stocks into safer investments, but Jensen insisted they wait for the market to rebound. The retired 68-year-old tried to reassure both of them by sending emails showing gains when their portfolio ended in the green. 7 weeks later, the couple's investment had recovered most losses, Jensen said. But rather than taking his risk down a notch, he recommitted to the stock market. This week, stocks fell again. And you know what, folks? Protecting your future. Stocks are going to rise, they're going to fall. They're going to rise, they're going to fall, based on events. And so when you plan your future, one of the things that you have to do, and again, I'm not a financial planner. I'm not telling you how to invest your money. I'm just telling you what I believe is to be common sense. If you're in the stock market, then you have to know your risk tolerance, how much you can afford to lose. You also have to know that the market moves on emotions. You have to also keep in mind the emotions, how they're stirred by people. And you heard Donald Trump's explanation of what's going with the EU. Do you think that this is going to be static? In other words, something will happen. Can't predict the future. Maybe the EU and the United States will come up with a good trade deal. Maybe they won't. But do know this, it's going to change again. So the point and the method to protect your future, don't panic. Don't overly rely on emotions, especially dealing with emotion-driven market situations, especially the way that the mainstream press in this country reports on the market. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to just follow emotions and follow and run your investments like that? And by the way, you can always look at other things in your portfolio. The good folks at Colonial Metals, of course, will tell you everything you need to know. You give them a buzz about what gold is about, what the other precious metals are about, and there are other ways to look at it. So, again, don't panic. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased beyond belief to welcome to this program Tammy Bruce. She is, of course, a veteran, and you know her from television, from radio, and now she is in government, State Department of the United States, spokeswoman for this. Tammy, how are you?
I am fine, but when you say it like that, even I get scared that I'm in government. Everybody just watch. It tells you how amazing and quickly change can happen under Donald Trump. Here I am.
Yes. Oh, God, it's so good to hear your voice, Tammy. Tammy, I have so many questions to ask you. First, let me start with what's going on at the State Department. When Marco Rubio came in and they started making changes, there was the usual hubbub on social media and in certain mainstream outlets about disgruntled people and all that. I heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio discuss what is happening in the State Department from the standpoint of it is becoming more effective, and these changes that are being made are long overdue. What can you tell us about the internal makeup of the State Department under this new administration?
Sure, and great question. And what's interesting for me, too, here is that, I've spent the last several decades talking, using my own opinion, right? We all have opinions. Lord knows I have a bunch. And now I'm in a position where where I have to discuss things in a way that is like everything but my opinion. But it's not that difficult because I said yes to taking this job because, we support Donald Trump. We support him as president, as a businessman, as a patriotic American. And we understand after all these years what he's wanted to accomplish. And so what's happening at the State Department, this was an amazing job to be offered by the president himself. And also working with Marco Rubio, when he called me and said, do you want to be the spokesperson for the State Department, he discussed with me his opinion about Secretary Rubio, that he had faith in him, that he felt he would do a great job, and asked me to join that team. And the president is correct about now Secretary Rubio. And this approach, I think, is very important to your question. For me, because I've never been in government, all of us have had an opinion. Usually government, frankly, has been a problem for Americans. We see the condition of the country, of the government itself. It has not been, frankly, helpful as it's grown to be a bureaucracy that is out of touch and has been weaponized against the American people. Our electing Donald Trump was a statement that we wanted that reversed. And one of the first things we have to do to reverse that is make government smaller. This has been a conversation amongst conservatives forever. I mean, that is in the refounding of the American conservative movement by Ronald Reagan. That was a major issue. And yet it's been difficult, if not too even frightening to approach. But we've been through a period of time, Bo, that we've now know we must do it. And there's one guy who can do it, and that's Trump. And in the meantime, Marco Rubio it understands this. We've all grown and learned about the nature of what's happening, let alone the last 4 years, and the treatment of not just President Trump, but his whole family. So what I've seen going into the State Department, the first thing is I've seen the fact that there are career people and foreign service officers and people who make the system run, and they are incredibly important. I would say certainly there's bad apples everywhere, Lord knows, and the system is way too big and has to be cut down. It has to be pared down to be more nimble and more effective. But I can tell Americans, and I've said this in my briefings that I've given, is that the people there who have committed to serving the American people, serving as officers within the State Department as their career, have made my work possible and have this amazing ability to do it without a partisanship impact. And they understand also that the necessity for us to do this. And so this is literally going through for the State Department, and every department in the government is doing this under an executive order issued by the president, is looking at how we can make our departments more efficient and more responsive to the American people. And for the State Department, that has meant cutting some offices, consolidating offices, and yes, some people have been let go. Other people have opted to retire. There's been a number of different programs. where people can choose how to exit their service. And this has been part of what I've been doing over these last 100-plus days in my role, is conveying to the staff, to people inside, and also to the American people, the nature of why we're doing it. And we're doing it because, as we've all been aware of, this large bureaucracy has become unmanageable. It is bankrupting us. It is not just unresponsive to the American people in a good way, but in a bad way, they have been responsive, right? I mean, even doing nothing has an impact, or being utilized by, partisan efforts to spy on people, as an example. Those the quote disinformation agency was embedded in the State Department. Now that has been uprooted. It is gone. So what we're doing is we're making things, yes, smaller, but it doesn't mean, as we all know as Americans, that just because something's giant doesn't mean it's good. We need to be, as the Secretary says, relevant, right? We need to move at the speed of relevance in this very fast-paced world, and a large bureaucracy doesn't let us do that. So we're in the process of doing it. We've been making it clear to everybody who's at state why we're doing it, and it's not going to be a situation where, a smaller government is going to be less responsive. My goodness, it's going to be the opposite. So we want to be nimble. We want to be responsive and answerable to the people who hired us, and that's the American taxpayer.
Amazing things happening there, and thank you for that. Let's move to Africa right now.
Yes,
Look,
sir.
Tammy, I have friends, and some of them are really leftist, and they are hot and bothered. I have heard things that have, to me, been almost offensive to listen to, that the goal of this administration is to, in their words, make America white again. They look at this Africa story. You have 59 immigrants come in asking for a refugee status, and the whole world blew up. We had over 11 million unvetted people come in under Joe Biden's administration, and you got no criticism of a real measure from these same media outlets that are now up in arms. I have heard the attacks that on the administration for this meeting. The mainstream press narrative was that Donald Trump and the administration ambushed the president of South Africa. They said the crosses that were shown in the picture, that wasn't real. There is no genocide in South Africa. Now, look, Tammy, I understand this. Trying to understand even and explain American history from the prism of race is not a soundbite discussion. South Africa isn't either. The changes that have gone on in South Africa from even before the Boer War would take time to explain. But what can you tell us about this situation with South Africa and the administration?
Well, it's Americans care about the nature of what's going on around the world. We know, of course, that everything that happens now affects us because of the nature of the modern age. But what's interesting is no one would really be looking at South Africa and its history and what it's doing now without Donald Trump having placed some attention on it. The world knows the nature of the violence and the decline of society in South Africa because of the regime that is running it now. It is not something that was secret. The world looks and then looks away because it doesn't fit a leftist narrative, the nature of what's going on. So this is not new. We've been watching it happen. But like a nation like Haiti as well, that the world doesn't really look and pay attention if a nation doesn't fit a certain narrative or doesn't have something that the world wants. What President Trump's administration is doing is looking at all these nations, recognizing our responsibility to the world, not as nation builders, but as ending the violence, as holding up a dynamic where we have a set of values that we expect from our allies and our potential allies and even our enemies that they'd better start upholding, which means an end to violence, an end to the abuse, to human rights abuses, et cetera. And that's what's been going on with our looking at South Africa. Very simply, when you think, first of all, to that meeting, the president of South Africa knows there's no ambush. Everybody knew and knows what President Trump has been saying about South Africa. We've certainly been public about it. He's made pronouncements about it. I've made pronouncements about it, about the nature of the violence that is occurring, and in their case, very publicly against the farmers in South Africa who happen to be white. And if this was happening in any other dynamic, our generation has been educated. Everyone on earth has been educated about the ugly and heinous efforts using race to harm people on this planet. And if we're going to take it seriously, we've got to take it seriously for everyone. And this is one of those cases that people are targeted simply because of their race. And in this case, it is publicly, there's videos of major events where it's about killing the Boer. And for those listening, of course, that's BOER. It is the descendants of white settlers from hundreds of years ago. That is the target about people, again, because of their race and perhaps ethnicity. And then in the midst of that, what the president of South Africa said in the Oval Office when confronted with this is that, the people calling for the murder of the farmers who are white, they are not part of our government. And yet this one particular person who calls for this, and it's a chant, has certainly not been arrested. But in the midst of those kinds of calls, what this man's government did do is pass a law allowing the confiscation of the property of white farmers. And the law allows it to happen for no operational reason, just because it's owned by white farmers. So who does this? If you are opposed to a movement in your country calling for the murder of white people, and then you pass a law saying that those same people, those white farmers, that the government wants to and should be able to and will confiscate their land for no reason, it reinforces the demonizing of those individuals, to say nothing, though, of the general violence and collapse, really, of civil society in the midst of some level of chaos and violence. And they're cozying up to Iran. They also then referred Israel, after the October 7th massacre, Israel, the victims, to an international court for genocide claims, while ignoring Hamas. So when you take that combination, that is South Africa, that is Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, and President Trump, open enough and generous enough to have this man in the White House, an open conversation in front of the press and Americans about what was going on in that country. This is what helps foster change. And the people who came here, to your other point about the refugees, we do have an asylum policy that if you are under threat and there's a standard, we will take you in. And the people that came in from South Africa, these white farmers and other individuals, met that standard, and we welcome them in because we do not discriminate. That is the key. And we do have a limit right now, an end to the ability for people to just move into the country because of the immigration problem we have with the 11 million you noted. But it is also written with exceptions, that we can make exceptions when there is a unique dynamic, and that applies to everyone. And that's why those individuals came.
Tammy, we have to leave it there, and I wish we didn't, because I got so much more to ask you. You got to come back when you can, please.
We can do it regularly. I can give you updates.
Let's do it regularly. Thank you.
Yes.
Tammy, let me just say one last thing before we leave for today.
Sir.
Tammy,
yes,
I love you. Thank you.
I love you, too. Thank you, Bo. Thank you.
James Golden, Snerdley, that is our Tammy Bruce. We're coming back on this day, 1950. Well, it's tomorrow. Robert Steinhardt from Kansas was born. This, of course, their big hit in 1978. James Golden, Snerdley, don't go away. We're coming back.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, my friends, we are at the end of our number duo of our Saturday morning vibe. Our number trio is coming up. And what is coming up in our number trio will please everyone. Princess Diana will be here. America's small caffeinated mom, Rhonda Schrock, will be here in your telephone calls, 800-848-9222. It was so good to hear from Tammy. And I'm serious, we're going to try to make this regular. She suggested we're going to take her up on it. As you know, I love Tammy Bruce. I just love that woman. She's amazing and always has been. And I'm just glad that we have people in government doing the things that we want. Yes, this is why we elected them. Coming back. Don't go away.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Already, our number trio is here. The third hour of the Saturday Morning Vibe. Welcome, my friends. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. The Saturday Morning Vibe, and, of course,
it's time for Radio Royalty with James Golden and America's Princess of Policy, Princess Di.
She is the Ness of all things good, the intellectual Ness, the analyst Ness, the royal Ness of goodness and light. Princess Diana in the house. How are you, Your Highness?
I am so happy to hear the James Ness. It's wonderful to hear your voice every week. Every day I listen to you, and especially on Saturdays, because you have more time, which you need.
Well, look, I have so much stuff I'm not going to be able to get to today. But before we talk about Joe Biden and the Biden albatross, which I love that text you sent me, the Biden albatross. Before we get there, Princess Di, I got to ask you about Harvard. This thing with Harvard has blown my mind. First of all, I can believe, but I just say I can't believe. It is amazing to see that this administration is actually pushing back on the elitist institutions, not only in government, but what is happening here is just, to me, mind-blowing. And they are not backing down. Do you have any thoughts on that you want to share with us?
Well, I'm with you. I think that this has been of a piece with what Trump has been doing. He has gone after the heart of the evil being pumped out by the left, including the things we discovered, USAID, some of these, shadowy organizations in government. And Harvard has been part of that for a long time. Harvard predates our government and has been intertwined with the American government for good in the beginning and now for ill. They are really the heart of the liberal global empire. They have these parts of their system all over the world, parts of research and parts of actually involved in government activism in other governments, trying to topple and prop up. Really coordinating with our CIA. And so Trump recognizes how damaging Harvard has been with personnel and policy beneath the radar for many decades now to really pump out leftism and work against the American people, and being paid by the American people, by the way, with tax dollars. And so Trump, by basically someone going after this, is taking aim, and as we have said before, he is going at liberalism root and branch, and Harvard is an important part of that. So I am so happy. He's not going to win every battle on this, but he is keeping them off balance. They cannot believe it. That's the thing that's so interesting, is they are stunned and shocked and, really staggering as far as all of the battles they have to fight. And Harvard is, as all the other organizations, putting out all kinds of lawsuits and fighting in court. But Harvard isn't going to win them all either. And so for Trump to basically put them on defense, for the first time in our adult lives is just remarkable, and the results can only be good for America.
The Biden albatross, Your Highness. Explain what the Biden albatross is.
Well, a lot of it has been brought into focus by this latest book, the Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson book called Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, His Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again, which was published on Tuesday, May 20th. And so this has focused the discussion because, as I said, this is the problem for the Democrat Party going forward. This has been called, mostly by conservatives, the biggest scandal in American political history, that we had a president who was unable to perform the duties of his office. And it was obvious to us. It was obvious to the American people writ large, but the cover-up by the mainstream media and the absolute viciousness that they attacked anyone pointing it out. You remember the Jake Tapper, Laura Trump interview from some years ago where she dared point out some of the things that we had all seen of Biden wandering aimlessly in search of a thought verbally and also wandering, trying to get off the stage. And Jake Tapper took off after her, basically, how dare you criticize someone's stutter, which, of course, she had absolutely no intention of criticizing a stutter. She was criticizing his mental acuity. And so the viciousness with which the media basically surrounded and protected Biden until the debate when the game was up. And so this now is a dilemma for them because everyone is pointing fingers. And one of the funniest ones that Tapper is trying to redeem his own reputation is basically saying there were two Joe Bidens. And here's his quote. There were two Joe Bidens. There was the fine Joe Biden that we saw in one of the clips that one of these media organizations showed from 2016. And then there was the non-functioning Biden that we saw during the debate. And the question was, when did the non-functioning Biden emerge? Which is insane as a way of protecting his own reputation. There is only one Joe Biden. And we all saw the non-functioning Joe Biden was who was president of the United States in name only. So this idea that they're trying to come up with a spin, and the other part of that spin, I've been seeing very funny articles, one which was in the Washington Monthly. It's just a liberal monthly magazine. Joe Biden has nothing to do with the 2028 election. And Paul Begala said Democrats' credibility isn't hurt at all by Biden decline. They were hoping he was fine. So they're trying to protect themselves from the inevitable results of their own, deception, the media and the Democrats, by basically whistling past the graveyard, the political graveyard, and saying, oh, it's not going to affect anything. Nobody has anything to apologize for who is running in the Democrat ticket in 2028 because this was nobody's fault, and so it will be fine. That famous meme where the guy is sitting there in the middle of a house fire saying it's fine, everything is fine. That's what the Democrats are doing. They're basically, on the one hand, trying to come up with a spin for what we all just experienced with the last disastrous 4 years. And on the other hand, basically saying it's not a problem. So that, to me, has been very interesting. They have painted themselves into the corner. They don't have a way out of it. Some of the most interesting articles that you've seen this week, Democrats throw money at problem, countering the GOP clout online, with all these Democrats trying to come up with podcasts. They're throwing money they're begging for money by wealthy Democrats so that they can come up and find a podcast that's going to, help them with their messaging because they have a, quote, branding issue. And then Time Magazine had an article this week, Inside the Democrats Reboot. And here's what they're going to do. They agree they're going to recenter their economic issues in their messaging, and they're going to develop a patriotic populism to counter Trump.
Again, Again.
Yes.
Again.
So
Now
they're in a world of hurt. There's no way that they're rebranding or remessaging or any of that. They can't declare they're going to find a podcaster who's going to change and influence, the younger voters. It's kind of like Air America, which you remember the left tried to do when Rush was so popular. They tried to create, their version of Rush Limbaugh on the left, which it never worked. And this isn't going to work either. So,
but they have their podcaster. They have their podcaster. It's Gavin Newsom and his podcast.
And don't forget, they had Joe Rogan. This is the thing they never asked themselves. Joe Rogan was from the left. They lost him. And they never look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, we had effective messaging people who were on our team over the last, 10, 15 years. Everyone with any inkling of sense has left them. So this idea that they're going to, create by throwing money at it, a podcaster who's going to equal Rogan's influence is just not even looking at their own history of what just happened.
Now, there's a wild card to me in this business that you talked about, the Biden albatross. And I thought when the story first started to become circulated, I said, oh, come on. You're never going to see this through. I'm beginning to think that there may be some there. This auto pin business, subpoenas are supposedly already on the way out. The letters have been sent to the targets. And if they don't get a response, what I understand from in the House, a committee looking into this, then subpoenas are going to be issued. I'm not giving it, I'm not saying, okay, this is done. Look, if this is a wild card, if this investigation into this auto pin goes the wrong way for Democrats, they're in a real world of hurt.
Yes, and interestingly enough, you remember Eagle Ed Martin, who was rejected by the Republicans on the Senate. Well, he has a new job, and one of his jobs now within the administration is his portfolio is to look at the pardons. And he is like a dog with a bone. He is so doing his research. He's already naming names from the Biden administration who were involved in this, and he is going to go after them. So I think there's much more to this once he was named in that post.
Well, I'll tell you what, Princess, stay right there, please. We got to take a quick break here. Coming back with more Princess Diana, and your calls are coming up as Birthday today for tomorrow, Tom Hall. Country music singer, songwriter. He had 11 hit songs that reached the top 10, including this one. Jenny Riley's Harper Valley PTA. Back in 1968. James Golden, Snerdley with you here. Saturday Morning Vibe. Princess Di's here. America's Small Caffeinated Mom. Ron Dishrock coming up as well. Your calls coming up. We got a lot to do. Don't go away.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
On this day, 1967, Jamaican-born American rapper Heavy D was born. Leader of Heavy D and the Boys. Sadly passed away. He was only 44 years old when he passed away back in 2011. And, of course, you know who that is in the background that they're sampling. That's Third World's version of Now That We Found Love. That is that's a great record from the group Third World in the background. James Golden, Snerdley with you here. Princess Diana is here. Let me ask you just a few questions about some other things, Princess Di. I'm looking through the headlines that I have here. Chris Wright, the Energy Secretary, which, by the way, that is just mind-blowing. Yesterday played cuts of Chris Wright saying over a 76-day period, the Biden White House, during the transition between after the election of Donald Trump and before Biden took office, almost $100 billion in loans out the door, unvetted, some of them, not even a business plan, loan money, some of them a promise to create a business plan, and that was the basis for them giving billions of dollars in American taxpayer money away to people on the left. He's looking at that now. He also says that inside the big, beautiful bill, it's the final nail in the coffin for the Green New Deal. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, you are right to point that out and to feature it, as you did this week, on how they looted the Treasury on the way out. And it wasn't just the Energy Department. It was everywhere they could. They were scamming money. And the other thing that Secretary Wright has mentioned before is how Biden drained the strategic reserves. And
right.
So $100 million of damage because they drained it so fast so that Biden would prop up prices and do better in the midterms. It was a political draining of the United States strategic reserves, which is there for a reason, and it's not for political purposes. And the fact that now taxpayers have to repair the reserves because of how fast they damaged it, how fast they drained it and damaged it. And so now taxpayers are on the hook for it.
There's a headline today, Booz Allen. Now, you mentioned Booz Allen. Most people, Booz. These guys are a huge, huge infrastructure part of government in Washington, D.C. What are they? They're consulting firms. Yeah. They're going to cut 2,500 jobs because right now they're saying because the Trump reduction in government spending. People do not understand. There's a story out of Minnesota that I just got, and we don't have time to play it. Another nonprofit group out there, millions of dollars on another one of these NGOs, millions of dollars supposedly to feed children, only no one can find any children that they fed. The money surrounding everything that is happening now with this look by this administration of how government is run is changing things in ways that most of the public will never see or even understand. But these are huge things that are happening, like this Booz Allen cut.
It's part of what I mentioned Harvard was the heart of. The liberal empire. This is imperialism of an ideology around the world. And as you say, the government bureaucrats and the nonprofits and the NGOs that Trump is going after, root and branch of the liberal money machine worldwide. And that's why there is so much hostility toward him. And the only card they're playing right now is the judicial branch. That's it. They have not been able to stop him at all through the usual channels. So they have their activist judges who are just, basically putting up, temporary restraining orders as fast as they can, which a lot of them will not stand. They'll be overturned. But they don't have any other way to counter Trump because of his Trump speed, which is wonderful.
And the FTC has abandoned the Biden block on Microsoft purchasing Activision. The steel deal that the Biden administration tried to get up Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel, that's now Trump has overturned that. I think you had predicted that there is going to be an explosion in this economy with all these moves being made. When they come to fruition, Princess Di, I don't know how it can miss at this point.
Yes, and this is why we're in the window of panic where before all of these things actually explode on the scene in people's lives, and I have said it's going to take about a year, which is 9 more months before the economy actually is tangible to people. And so the left has only fear and fear-mongering and panic so that's what they're hearing, but they're selling that it will not last.
Your Highness, happy Memorial Day, and thank you as always.
Thank you, Sir James.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, your calls are coming up. If you've been on hold, thank you for your patience. We're going to grab some calls when we head back. And following calls, we're going to check in with America's small caffeinated mom, Rhonda Schrock. So whatever you do, keep it right here. The Saturday morning vibe is here. Stay here.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Tomorrow's the birthday of Mitchell Margot from The Tokens. 1961. They did a cover of Solomon Linda's song, and it went number one for them. The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Well, the lion's awake. I think he's in the White House, actually. I promise telephone calls. And look, folks, thank you for your patience. We have so many audio things that these guys on the staff worked all night preparing that we're not going to get to because we want to take some calls here. It's been a busy morning. But we got some doozies here. So we're going to have to hold some of these things. We have one gal, for instance, who claims... I'm sorry for this, but we play this stuff because you need to know what these people are saying on social media. She claims that you, those of you who are Caucasian, that you put animals, dogs, ahead of black people in your pecking order. It's stuff like that. And then just one, we started playing this yesterday, but we ran out of time. 21, Carlos, then we're going right to calls. 21, just quickly.
If you are wondering why we will never have free college in the United States,
people like this,
and why we will continue to lag behind other countries in reading and writing, it's because the only voter base that is still voting Republican is non-college educated whites. If non-college educated whites didn't vote in this election, Kamala Harris would have won in a landslide. The reason that there will never be free college is because people...
Thank you. There's not going to be free college because nothing's free. Someone always pays for it. Anyway, let's head to the telephones and let's check in with Julie in New Jersey. Good morning, Julie. How are you?
Good morning. I just wanted to comment on Lizzie, who I've respected for her go-getting attitude and stuff. And the fact that it's, I only caught part of the story, but it's okay for this woman to have sex with 580 men and stuff.
583, darling. You left 3 out. 583 men, hold on, in a 6-hour period. And the young lady's in the hospital now. She did this for her OnlyFans account. I've been asked all kinds of questions like this. Was there a line? How do the logistics work on this? But there is a challenge, and she's not the only one. There are other OnlyFans young ladies that have done the same thing. It's all part of a challenge to see how many men they can sleep with, and they video this stuff, put it on social media. So that's the full story on that. So go ahead.
Where's the shame or morality?
Shame?
Today, and it makes me question Lizzie, because the next time she comes on, I don't know if I want to listen to what she has.
Oh, yes, you do. Our Lizzie is just an amazing... Look, Lizzie has a point of view, and Lizzie's point of view is a point of view that's widespread among members of her generation. They see the world differently than we do. Julie, that's all. Their view of the world is different, but look at the world that they grew up in. It's different than the world that we grew up in.
Right. Who knows? I mean, then, it goes to show you can't believe everyone either then later on with this whole thing with Harry Weinstein and stuff. I mean, look at it. I mean, I'm just surprised that people would, compare this to Evel Knievel making money.
I know, but look... It's like I get so many questions, and I've gotten so many people. I once said, "I'm enjoying your show, James, except for the part about the 500 plus," and she uses the word SLU. She uses the S word to call it. I don't usually use that label. She's proven to everyone she deserves that label. She obviously wears it with pride. So disgusting, so sad. Another one, it's mentally ill. Was there a lineup outside the home? How can someone do? Look, TJ, you're on social media. How do these women do these things with these challenges?
I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know the answer. Yeah, protect yourself. Kelvin, how do they do it with all these men in 6 hours?
Imagine a warehouse.
Kelvin?
I'm sorry, Bowman. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, how do they do it? Because I'm getting questions. How do these girls do the logistics of sleeping with 583 men in 6 hours? How does it work?
I would imagine you line up and you just, that's it. Like, so there was another OnlyFans model that did the same thing. She slept with 1,000 men in 24 hours. So I would imagine she's just trying to recreate the stunt, right? So, and from video of that, it was just guys lined up. So, I mean, if you want that, that's your answer right there, right?
Okay. Was it in a warehouse? Was it in a bedroom? How did it? What happened?
It looked like a mansion. It looked like a mansion, yeah.
So they probably rented a place for this.
Yeah, and they just line up. Just line them up and knock them down.
So to speak.
So to speak.
Knock them down.
Well, she's in the hospital. And she said that she complained of being a little raw. And said that she had experienced a little bit of bleeding. That was the news story as much as I remember. Look, thank you for the call. Let's switch gears and talk to Mike in Virginia. Mike, how are you this morning? Thank you for waiting.
Good morning. Yes, I'm sitting in a sunshiny morning listening to you. I was introduced to your work back in 1988. I was a musician at Disney, and I had to drive an hour and a half to get to work, so I was listening to Rush back then, and I just started listening to you on the weekends, and what a glorious event that's been. You, about several weeks ago, you made mention of the Mantovani Orchestra.
Yes.
And I actually was one of the last touring guitarists for that group, so it was.
Oh my gosh!
You struck a chord, as it were, that morning. So.
Mantovani was just incredible. Why don't you look? You played with him. Why don't you just tell people about him and the orchestra and what you did? The music that came out of Mantovani was just fabulous.
Well, what happened? It was the best musical experience I ever had. You know, I got a 50-year career of playing music for, theme parks. I played with people like Betty White and Bob Hope and that sort of thing as a sideman. And by far, that was the best musical experience. Now, I never met the maestro, but I met his business manager. And the arrangements, oftentimes when you play music like that, the arrangers or composers don't quite understand how the guitar works in there. Mantovani understood it, and it was a complete joy to play that because he understood my instrument as well as he did everybody else's. And the story, there was a story, we were playing an Americana show, and I was playing the banjo on some of the songs, some of the arrangements. Well, on the same show, we were playing Rhapsody in Blue, and the conductor came to me and he said, "Hey, did you know that there's a banjo part written for this particular piece?" And I went, "No, I had no idea." He says, "Get a piece of paper and write out the part and play it with us." Absolutely. So I was playing it in a couple of shows, and we went to the Tampa Performing Arts Center, and the conductor came to me and he said, "Listen, I need a little more banjo right at the top of the smear where the clarinet starts." And at the time, I was working for the Disney part playing Dixieland banjo, where louder, faster, higher really makes a difference. So I'm sitting there going, and knowing that all the violin players were from Nashville and they were trying to get away from banjo players, it just became, the thought that, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and hit this. So I bounced that first note off the back wall of theater. And the conductor looked at me with this astonished look like, oh, my goodness. And then I looked over at the string section, and all of them were trying to subdue the hysterical laughing that they were and the accordion player, who was a member of Patton's Third Army, he's sitting right in front of me, and he looked at me and says, "Way to go, Mikey."
I love it.
This manager had a discussion with me during intermissions, and that never happened again. But it was great.
Fabulous. Mike, it's so good to hear from you. And Montavani, just amazing musician, and thank you for sharing with that. I have the good fortune of having a great friend of mine, Patrick Burns, who wishes everybody hello, who is an amazing conductor and has taught me so much in this past 2 years about music on symphonic music. Oh, man, I hear her, Patti LaBelle. Patti LaBelle's birthday is tomorrow, I believe, or is it today? It's tomorrow, I believe. Yes, it is. No, it's today. Happy birthday today to the one, the only Patti LaBelle. I remember when she was with Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. Of course, they changed the name on their second iteration to simply LaBelle. That's where this big hit came from in 1975. And then Patti did a duet with Mike McDonald in 86. It went up to number 1, On My Own. She's just incredible. And she has an album where she also has some duets that are just amazing. Anyway, Patti LaBelle, happy birthday. America's Small Caffeinated Mom coming up. Don't go away.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
On this day in 2023, the great Tina Turner passed away, aged 83 years old. Of course, with Ike and Tina, so many different hits, including River Deep, Mountain High, but this was her solo hit. Went superstar status on this on her own. Tina Turner. And appropriately, given what we've been talking about, the last conversation, what's love got to do with it? Kelvin, you found out what? They say what?
I found out she has a fiance.
583 girl has a fiance.
Who is now 584. She has a fiance. She has a fiance, yeah.
I don't think she was a virgin when she started.
Oh, boy. Amazing. And the comments are still coming in. Sir Bruce has weighed in. He says the men should be called out as well for participating in this. It's disgusting. Let us move to wholesome now and check in with America's Small Caffeinated Mom, Rhonda Schrock. Miss Wholesome.
Yes. Good morning, James. I mean, when
Good
I hear
morning.
a story like that, do you know who I think of? My 4 sons and my husband. It clears things up real fast for me. I'm just saying.
Okay. For a minute there, I didn't know where you were going with that, Rhonda. I got a little nervous.
Oh,
just
no.
saying.
I mean, I put that all in perspective. You know, is that
Thank
what
you.
I want for my sons and my husband? And speaking
And
of
you don't want your sons bringing home 583 to meet you and say, here's your new daughter-in-law, I take it.
Well, I would prefer not, but yeah, I would prefer not. I trust those boys that we have raised. They have high standards, of course. But speaking of perspective, that's actually what I was pondering this week, and it's what I was wanting to talk to you about. I have always been a voracious reader all my life. In fact, when I was 6, I was reading the newspaper and coming to my parents with headlines. And they couldn't believe it, and they would check the newspaper to see if I was telling the truth, and yes, I was, because I had read it. Well, by the time I was in 3rd grade, I was squinting at the chalkboard in the classroom, and the teacher mentioned it to my parents, and I, went to the eye doctor, and I got my first pair of glasses when I was in the 3rd grade. I remember putting those glasses on, and all of a sudden, the world was crystal clear to me. I hadn't even realized how blurry things were and how, kind of foggy it was until I got a pair of corrective lenses that were right for me. And all of that blurriness and fogginess went away. It was amazing. I was thrilled. Well, I still wear glasses, and often, they get smudged, they get dirty, and it drives me crazy, and I have to polish them and get the dirt off so that I can see clearly again. Well, I was thinking about how having a dirty or smudged inner lens can affect so many things. It affects the way we view our lives and the things that happen to us. And it's often the very hardest to keep those lenses clear when we're going through trying times, whether it's a long-term sickness or it's financial difficulties, job difficulties, family and relational struggles. It's really hard to see clearly when we're in the middle of those things. It can just be all-consuming when you're in the middle of a firestorm, especially if it's a long-running thing that just does not resolve. You can actually sort of lose your sense of time. At least that's what has happened to me in the past. And you start to think, this is all I have ever known, is this hardship and pain, and this is how it's just always going to be. That's where your mind can go. So here in these times is where our perspective is critical. When something is beyond my ability to fix it or to change it, then at some point I have to choose to move from that fog into the light, and the light brings clarity. I have lived long enough now, James, that I have been through many hard things and things that did not that were long running, and I have learned. I have the luxury of the age and experience now of looking back and being able to see from this perspective and vantage point that every one of those hard things brought something good for me. They came to me hard, very painful, very thorny, but when I could unwrap the gifts, there was gold in there for me. That's when the fog begins to dissipate, when you can start saying, actually asking yourself different questions. What if this doesn't last forever? What if it doesn't? What if there is happiness and rest for me on the other side of this thing? And if I can begin to contemplate a future that holds hope, that inner lens begins to clear. This is from a lifetime now of experience and wisdom. That perspective has come to me. It clears the fog in your mind. When I can move past, this is such a challenging time, to what is the opportunity? It is like I had my nose pressed up against the side of the mountain, and all I could see, my whole frame of vision, was full of nothing but mountain. But when I can step back and say, perhaps there's an opportunity for me to learn and grow all at once, I can see like the edges of the mountain. I can see the slope of the earth. In other words, I see the limits on this, and I begin to notice there is a path going up the side of the mountain, and not only is there a path and I'm on it, but someone else is on it with me. I am not climbing this thing alone. When I can step back from that mountain and look at that, I get courage. Fresh courage flows into me, and that hope. Another thing that mountains do to us is they change our perspective of ourselves. It shows us how small we really are. We are not omnipotent. We are not omniscient. We are small. And that does not make me feel diminished. I feel valued when I realize that, because I happen to know who created the mountains and who is walking me through them and over them, and who will help me in these hard things. I remember that I am not alone. I will never be alone. And the people I love will never be alone. Perspective, I found this quote in my research this week. Perspective is not a science, but a hope. And that is so true. When you allow hope to infuse your perspective, the hard things look a little less hard. It is no longer rocky, impassable, and impossible. But there is a hope that you will get through this, and you will reach the top, and it will be amazing. In my research this week, I also ran across a quote from George Washington Carver. I love this so much. He said this: "My prayers seem to be more of an attitude than anything else. I indulge in very little lip service, but ask the great Creator silently, daily, and often many times a day to permit me to speak to him through the three great kingdoms of the world which he has created, the animal, mineral, and vegetable kingdoms, to understand their relations to each other and our relations to them and to the great God who made all of us. I ask him daily and often momently to give me wisdom, understanding, and bodily strength to do his will. Hence, I am asking and receiving all the time. What a great perspective by which to look at your own life, at your work, at your place in the world, and at God. It is so important that we see all of these things clearly and with the right perspective. It's so important.
Amen to that. Rhonda, where can people find the essay?
It's on your website, thedailybs.com.
And where can people find you?
My home in cyberspace is at rhondaschrock.com, SCHROCK. And James, sometime, I don't know if you'll have time today, but I'd love to hear how you keep your perspective clear in hard things.
Meditation. I try.
There you are.
It. Simple answer.
There you are. So good.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. We got to go, folks. May God bless, protect each and every single one of you, your families, your loved ones. Love and gratitude for your being with me and allowing me to be with you. Hopefully we'll check each other out again this time next time. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Looking forward to seeing you, hearing from you the next time around. Until then, my friends, I bid you adieu. Bye.
Thanks for listening to The James Golden Show. You can hear The James Golden Show Saturday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?